in our last class, if you remember, we have completed circulation in humans. We had studied in our last class. Now, after circulation, the next topic which we have to study, that is respiration. Now, a very important process, respiration. Respiration is defined by different ways. Some scientists say that respiration means exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide in the lungs. Some scientists say it is to inhale air into lungs and to expel air from the lungs. That is respiration. Some scientists say, which is the actual definition of respiration, it is production of energy in a living system is called respiration. This is actually technical definition of respiration, production of energy in a living system. Now, respiration means one more thing, each and every living being requires energy. Because you study in thermodynamics that energy is modified into work, work is modified into energy. Means without energy, it is very difficult to perform any work. Respiration is differentiated into anaerobic respiration and aerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration and aerobic respiration. We will write the characters of these two types of respiration, as well as we will write the differences at the same time. Number one, anaerobic respiration takes place in absence of oxygen, while aerobic respiration always takes place in presence of oxygen. That is the first difference in between these two. Number two, that is, we used to say that in anaerobic respiration end products of the process are, that is, we can say alcohol and organic acids. Alcohol and organic acids, while aerobic respiration and products, that is carbon dioxide and water. Then less amount of energy is produced. Less amount of energy is produced. One glucose produces 2 molecules of adenosine triphosphate, while in aerobic respiration more energy is produced. One glucose produces 38 molecules of adenosine triphosphate. Then it is common in endoparasites. It is common in endoparasites. Endoparasites means those animals which are parasite and living inside the body of their host, living inside the body of their host, because they are not getting oxygen inside the body of their host, while here it is common in ectoparasites and free living animals. Means this type of respiration that is common in ectoparasites and in free living animals. These are the qualities of aerobic and anaerobic respiration. At the same time, we have written the differences in between aerobic and anaerobic respiration. We have to study one more thing. In some books, they have given one more process which produces energy. So whenever two processes which are producing energy, that is a similarity in between them, so then we talk about differences also. That process is called burning. You know, whenever any substance burns, it also releases energy. But if you see the difference in between burning and respiration, so very simple to explain, that burning usually occurs in non-living structures. We burn paper, wood, like that. While respiration takes place in living things. Burning is an uncontrolled process. You must have heard, you must have seen in the television that whenever anything is burning, sometimes it becomes uncontrolled. While respiration is a controlled process. In burning, light is also produced. In respiration, light is not produced. End products of the burning, that is ash. While end products of the respiration, that is alcohol, organic acids, carbon dioxide, water-like substances. So these are the differences in between the burning and respiration. We are concerned with respiration in humans, because in our syllabus we say respiration in humans. In humans, mostly aerobic respiration takes place. Mostly aerobic respiration takes place, but sometimes whenever need occurs, anaerobic respiration also takes place. For example, in our muscles, in our body muscles, aerobic respiration takes place, but whenever oxygen is not available, then anaerobic respiration also takes place. Anaerobic respiration also takes place. So in humans, you know, humans are the most developed animals on earth. So they are having a well-developed respiratory system. They are having a well-developed respiratory system. The branch of the science which deals with the study of respiratory system is pulmonology or pneumology. That is called pulmonology or pneumology. Respiratory system, when we study, it is differentiated or it is studied in two parts. Number one is structure of the respiratory system and functioning of the respiratory system. Structure of the respiratory system and functioning of the respiratory system. First, we will study structure of respiratory system. Structure of the respiratory system, that is anatomy. Respiratory system is made up of two parts: respiratory passage number one and number two, respiratory organs. Two parts. First, we will study respiratory passage. First, we will study respiratory passage. It is near about 30 to 45 centimeters long passage, which is made up of different parts. The parts of the respiratory passage in sequence I will write. First we are studying respiratory passage, then we will study respiratory organ later on. Respiratory passage it starts from external nares, that is also called nostrils, followed by nasal chamber, internal nares, then pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchus, then bronchioles, after bronchus, then primary bronchioles, then secondary bronchioles, tertiary bronchioles, then terminal or respiratory bronchioles, and then they terminate in the respiratory organs. These are the parts of the respiratory passage in humans. A long respiratory passage is important because atmospheric air should reach up to respiratory organs. What are respiratory organs in human? Lungs. Means atmospheric air has to reach up to lungs. Atmospheric air has to reach up to lungs. You know, atmospheric air contains so many impurities like dust particles, pollen grains, bacteria, virus, fungal spores. If atmospheric air will directly reach into lungs, these impurities will also reach into lungs and they will deposit in the lungs, no chance to come out. That is dangerous. That's why naturally human is having a long respiratory passage. When air passes through this long respiratory passage, when the air passes through this long respiratory passage, most of the impurities are filtered. Most of the impurities are filtered. And the air which reaches into lungs, that is not having such impurities. So that is the significance of long respiratory passage. That is the significance of long respiratory passage. Now one by one we see. Number one, external nares. You know that the two openings of our nose, the two openings of our nose, they are called external nares. This is the line diagram of the head of human. This is nose, this is mouth, oral cavity, this is pharynx. I taught you in digestive system. Now see, these are the two openings of the nose. That is called nostrils, are external nares. How we explain it? There are two openings on the maxilla bone. Two openings on the maxilla bone of the upper jaw, separated by a nasal septum. Two openings on the maxilla bone of upper jaw. You can see these two openings. They are separated by a nasal septum. You know, in between there is a partition wall. That is the description of nostrils. What is the function of the nostrils? Atmospheric air starts entering. This is the entry point. Atmospheric air starts entering into respiratory passage through these openings. Second, nasal chamber. See, second is nasal chamber. This is nasal chamber. This nasal chamber, this is internal nares. Means what is nasal chamber? The space in between. The space in between external nares and internal nares. The space in between external nares and internal nares, that is nasal chamber. This nasal chamber is situated inside a bone that is called turbinal. This whole nasal chamber, this is the bone. Black line, this is the bone turbinal. Inside the turbinal bone, this space is called nasal chamber. This space. Nasal chamber is divided into three parts. First part is vestibule. Second part, this is called respiratory part of nasal chamber. Respiratory part of nasal chamber, and this is the olfactory part of nasal chamber. Olfactory part of nasal chamber, vestibule, respiratory part and olfactory part, three parts. This vestibule, that is divided into two parts. If you will see inside these nostrils, you see compartments through a septum. This is actually nasal septum, which is dividing the vestibule into two parts. You will see two projections. See like this. Two projections here. At the inner end of the nasal chamber, you can see in the mirror there are two projections. These projections are called inferior concha. These projections are called inferior concha. You will see, if you see inside in mirror, you can see yourself that in the beginning this vestibule is broad, but somewhere here inside that becomes narrow. You will see this projection over there. That's why this portion becomes narrow. Near the inferior concha, there are two openings. Near the inferior concha, there are two openings. See, two openings. This is called openings of nasolacrimal duct. Near this inferior concha, you will find the openings of nasolacrimal duct. There is a duct which is connected from inner corner of the eyes to nose on either side. Inner corners of the eyes up till nose, there is a tube. There is a duct, nasolacrimal. You know, tears, they come in our eyes. Tears, they come in our eyes and they flow in this tube and come in the nose. Very simple example I can give you, which is a practical example. Whenever anybody cries, more tears come in the eyes. These tears, they flow in the nose also. So whenever a person is crying, there is running nose. This is the openings of nasolacrimal duct. Inner wall, see, inner wall of vestibule. Inner wall of vestibule is lined by, see, epithelial cells with hairs. Epithelial cells with hairs. Inner wall is lined by epithelial cells with hairs. When you will see inside, you will find hairs in the wall of vestibule. Hairs in the wall of the vestibule. Function of vestibule. Now one more thing. These epithelial cells, they also secrete mucus. So inner wall of vestibule is mostly moist. What is the function of vestibule? See, when air passes through the vestibule, because inner wall is moist, mucus is a sticky material, and hairs are also present. So whenever air passes through vestibule, there is filtration of air, impurities of air sticks with the hairs as well as the sticky mucus inside. So somewhat filtration of air takes place, and second, that temperature of air comes closer to the body temperature. Temperature of air comes closer to the body temperature. Then second part is respiratory part. What is the important feature in the respiratory part? See, inner wall of respiratory part, inner wall of respiratory part, this inner wall of the respiratory part is lined by pseudo-stratified ciliated epithelium. It is lined by pseudo-stratified ciliated epithelium. Pseudo-stratified, ciliated, cilia are present. Pseudo-stratified ciliated epithelium. What is the function of this part? Same, filtration of air, because cilia are present in the cells, so impurities, they stick to the cilia, so filtration of air. And secondly, when air passes through the respiratory part, the temperature of air becomes closer to the body temperature. See, it is very important that we are warm-blooded animals. Our body temperature, you know, it is 37 degrees Celsius. It is fixed. But environmental temperature changes. In summer, it goes to 45 degree, in winter 4 degree. So this much cold air or this much hot air should not reach up to our lungs. Should not reach up to our lungs until unless there will be damage to the lungs. So that's why what happens? That when air passes through this much long passage, the temperature shift towards the body temperature. It is important. Then third part, this is this olfactory part. This is olfactory part. What is the important feature in the olfactory part? See, bipolar nerve cells. Bipolar nerve cells are present. Bipolar nerve cells are present in this part, and it is called olfactory epithelium, olfactory epithelium, or it is also called Schneiderian membrane. It is also called Schneiderian membrane. Bipolar nerve cells are present. It is called olfactory epithelium. What is the function? When air passes through this part, the sense of smell is received here. Because they are bipolar nerve cells, they are sensory cells. So if any smell is present in air, so when air is passing through this part, if any smell is present, that is received here. That's why it is also called olfactory epithelium, because sense of smell is received here. Sense of smell is received here in this part. So in this manner we say that nasal chamber is divided into three parts. Now next part, internal layers. Internal layers, that is the opening of nasal chamber into pharynx. In the digestive system I taught you pharynx, nasopharynx, oropharynx, laryngopharynx, that we had already studied. I taught you there are two openings at the junction of oro and laryngopharynx. This is the opening which is called glottis. Glottis, which opens into larynx. This is larynx, and behind the larynx this opening opens into esophagus. This is esophagus. This is glottis, this is larynx. Glottis, this is larynx. Now glottis is controlled by this flap-like structure which is epiglottis. Glottis is controlled by a flap-like structure, that is epiglottis. Epiglottis. Because only air should go into glottis, while pharynx is a common passage for food and air. So food should not go into glottis, because glottis is the opening of respiratory passage. It is only modified for air. Any liquid or hard food stuff, solid food stuff should not go. And you all know, if any liquid or solid food stuff goes in glottis, a reflex process starts. A reflex process starts. That is, we can say coughing starts. Now after pharynx, next part is larynx. When we explain larynx, whenever we explain larynx, then we draw another diagram. Larynx is situated in upper part. Larynx is situated in the upper part of neck. It is situated in the upper part of the neck. Larynx is situated in the upper part of the neck, it is situated in the upper part of the neck, like this. See, this is glottis, glottis. This is larynx, larynx. We draw the larynx separately. See larynx, this is glottis, this is larynx. The wall of the larynx, that is made up of 3 layers. The wall of the larynx is made up of 3 layers. Outermost fibroconnective tissue, outermost layer, middle layer, submucosa, and innermost layer is mucosa. Just below the glottis, mucosa layer forms 2 big folds. These folds are called vocal cords. Vocal cords. Space in between the vocal cords, that is called rima glottis. That is called rima glottis. The space in between the vocal cords, that is called rima glottis. Air passes through it. The vocal cords, they vibrate. They are like this. In between these two, this is rima glottis space. They vibrate like this. And vibrations of the vocal cord produce sound. Means actually production of sound takes place in larynx. Production of sound takes place in larynx. So it is also called sound box. Vibrations of the vocal cords produce sound. That's why larynx, that is also called sound box. And production of sound is called phonation. Production of sound in larynx, that is called phonation. Phonation. Now larynx is a tube-like structure as I have drawn in upper part of neck. It is very soft tube. It is just like the cycle tube. In the cycle, bicycle, you have seen inside the tire there is a tube. It is so soft. You know, whenever in the cycle tube air is filled, it is inflated. When air goes out, it deflates. Like balloon. When air fills in the balloon, it is inflated. When air goes out, it is deflated. Here also, when air is present in larynx, it is inflated. But when air goes out, it deflates. But it should not. Because inner wall is mucosa which is moist. If the larynx will collapse, if the larynx will deflate, the inner wall which is mucosa and moist, sticky, it will stick and it will now never open again. So the wall of the larynx that is supported by some cartilages, the wall of the larynx from outside, see, on the outer surface, it is supported by certain cartilages. See, like this. These are the cartilages which are supporting it. These cartilages are uppermost cricoid cartilage, cricoid cartilage, then arytenoid cartilage, number 3, this is thyroid cartilage, and number 3, this is posterior cornua of Hyde apparatus. Posterior cornua of Hyde apparatus. Posterior cornua of Hyde apparatus. This is, these 4 cartilages, they support the wall of the larynx. 4 cartilages, they support the wall of the larynx. They support it. So it does not collapse. What is the function of? Mainly production of sound. That is the main function. But mucosa layer, innermost layer, that is made up of ciliated epithelium. So it also helps in filtration of air. Next to it is trachea. Next to larynx is trachea. It is trachea. Next to larynx, that is trachea. It is 9 to 11 centimeters long tube. 9 to 11 centimeters long tube. See, like this. 9 to 11 centimeters long tube it is. 9 to 11 centimeters long tube. Its wall is made up of 3 layers. Outermost fibro connective tissue, middle layer submucosa, and inner layer is mucosa. It is lined by stratified ciliated compound epithelial tissue. Compound epithelial tissue. Innermost layer like this. This is innermost layer in the wall of trachea. innermost layer in the wall of trachea like this. Now trachea is also a very soft tube. It is also called windpipe. It is a very soft tube. It is also called windpipe. The wall of the trachea that is very well supported by cartilaginous rings. Wall of the trachea is supported by cartilaginous rings made up of hyaline cartilage. They are called cartilaginous rings. See, these cartilaginous rings are 9 to 11 in number. They are 9 to 11 in number. They are cartilaginous rings, and see, they are C-shaped like this. Cartilaginous rings are C-shaped like this. C-shaped means they are incomplete. To see what is this condition, they are complete in front. This is complete front part. You can feel the cartilaginous rings in front of the neck. They are incomplete behind. They are incomplete behind. So they are supporting the wall. They are supporting the wall of the trachea. They are supporting the wall of the trachea. They are incomplete cartilaginous rings. What is the advantage of it? What is the advantage of it? Incomplete. So see, it is like this, C-shaped. They are complete in front. You can see they are complete in front, incomplete behind. Just behind the larynx, I have drawn, just behind the trachea, esophagus is present. See, this is trachea. This is trachea, and this is esophagus. So this is trachea, this is esophagus. So just behind the trachea is esophagus. Suppose the cartilaginous rings are complete, suppose behind also. If they are complete like circle. So behind the trachea is esophagus, and behind the esophagus is backbone. Behind the esophagus is backbone. So if the cartilaginous rings are complete, behind it is esophagus, and behind esophagus is backbone. So when we swallow the food, esophagus expands to provide space for the food. At present, cartilaginous rings are incomplete. So in this area, the wall of trachea is there, which is soft. So if we swallow a large piece of food, the esophagus has to expand, and that expansion takes place in this area of trachea where cartilaginous rings are not present. If they are complete, suppose cartilaginous rings are complete, so there is possibility of the damage to the wall of esophagus, because when we swallow the food, esophagus cannot expand behind, If cartilaginous rings are complete, it cannot expand in front also. The wall of esophagus may be pressed in between food and cartilaginous rings. But because they are incomplete, the wall of esophagus is protected. So incomplete cartilaginous rings, first significance, protection of esophagus. Protection of esophagus. And second, due to incomplete cartilaginous rings, the expansion of the trachea is possible. Expansion of the trachea is possible due to this. So trachea is called windpipe. Now see, in the upper part of thorax, trachea is divided into two branches. It is divided into two branches. This is right bronchus. This is left bronchus. Right bronchus and left bronchus. The structure of bronchus is same as trachea. Same as trachea. It is the branch of trachea. What is the important feature? Cartilaginous rings are present in the wall. See, same like trachea. And inner wall is lined by stratified ciliated compound epithelial tissue. Same structure. Only lumen is becoming narrow. Bronchus, both the bronchus, now they divide into primary bronchioles. These are called primary bronchioles. Primary bronchioles. Primary bronchioles are same as bronchus. See, like this. That is divided into right and left bronchus. Bronchus, they are further divided into 1, 2, 3 bronchioles, while on another side only 2 primary bronchioles. Right side 3 primary bronchioles, left side 2. Structure of bronchioles, primary bronchiole is same as bronchus, means cartilaginous rings and second ciliated epithelium inside. Further branching we will see in the next class. Thank you.